So, but how was the takeoff? You said 13 pilots?
Yeah, about 13 pilots.
So what was the success rate?
Only one made it.
1 of 13?
Yeah.
Welcome back to Paramotor Adventure Stories, a complete guide to paramotor adventure flying. Here we are back again with Jean Francois, and we will discuss high elevation takeoffs. I have to admit, high elevation takeoffs was something completely unknown to me. Here in Komárno, Central Europe, I fly at elevation of 100 meters above sea level, so I was completely unprepared when I went to the Icarus Trophy in the United States for high elevation takeoffs. But Jean Francois is someone perfectly qualified to discuss this topic because you live in New Mexico, right?
Yes.
What's the elevation
Santa
back home?
Fe, New Mexico, 7,500 feet.
7,500 feet. That's challenging, I can say, from my own experience. But we are here to discuss some stories, and I would like to hear your story. Let's start with the most exciting one. What was your highest elevation that you ever took off?
9,000.
9,000 feet.
Colorado. So I did it a few times. I did it on the way to the future Rio Grande adventure. So on the way to Colorado with a friend of mine, we launched at 9,000 feet, but we were still in New Mexico. And this one was overall very easy. We had a nice little breeze. It was fine. It was just first launch, everybody, two of us launching was nice and easy. We went back to Colorado and got to visit a ranch where we wanted to start of the Rio Grande adventure. Didn't get a chance to fly from there. We didn't try. It didn't really matter. We had tried to launch at 9,000 feet prior, but when the time came to do the Rio Grande trip, now we had a bunch of people there for the same reason, which was to reach the headwater, and we were about 13 of us.
Can you show us on the map where it was? Is it this one?
Oh yeah, it is this one. So this one is the ranch where we launched from. So we went and we asked permission to the rancher if we could launch from there. So we all came in and we parked right there, and that was our LZ.
Could you zoom out a little so we see? Let me see the terrain map. Terrain. It says 9,000 feet, and the mountains around go to kind of 11,000, right?
Yeah, it's 14,000, not very far from there, which is the headwater.
Wow. Plenty mountains around.
All mountains.
Beautiful. Must be a beautiful place.
Yeah, that was very
So, but how was the takeoff? You said 13 pilots?
Yeah, about 13 pilots.
So what was the success rate?
Only one made it.
1 of 13?
Yeah, for at that specific time that morning, because everybody launched 45 minutes later, or maybe an hour later.
Okay.
But at that specific time on the morning, when it was zero wind. So yeah, you were going to kick the dirt, and dust was just flying in any direction for about an hour. So everybody tried to set up. There were 3 setting up in one direction, 2 set it up in one direction, 3 in the other direction. Everybody was confused. Okay, where do we set up? So effectively 9,000 feet is high elevation. I had done it prior, by the way, in Colorado the year prior, but as long as you get the breeze is okay.
Let me do the conversion. Feet to meters. Wow, that's 2,740 meters. That's higher than the highest peak of Slovakia.
Yeah, hope. So at the end, what happened is that again we were all trying to set up and figured out what was the best wind direction, but there was no wind. So I tried and I went and the wind came down. I didn't commit enough. The person that was able to launch on his first try,
1 out of 13.
Exactly, has a lot of experience.
Who was that fortunate guy?
Scott Ritchie. Yeah, he has a lot of experience. He just fly all around the world, and even launched in Peru. I think he launched at over 4,000 meters. And also he had a wing that was bigger than the average. He had 26 meters wing. He weighed just about like us, but some of us had 19 meters, 20 meters. Myself, I was in the 24 meters. I still didn't make it because I didn't have the experience, I didn't have the kick, I didn't have, I was just missing what he has. He has the experience. So what I know that New Mexico in general, like Colorado, whatever, it's all pretty high elevation. They have a place in New Mexico near Albuquerque, it's called Paramotor City, and every year they do a little event, and these people are friends with some French people, and some years some French people came and none of them could launch. It's just a big, wide open field. They could not launch because they were not used to high elevation. They said, oh yeah, we're just coming in, we're just going to launch, it will be easy. They just were missing the launch with power, the running, and using your brakes more than normal.
I can confirm that, not being used to that. So when I came to the United States for the first time, flying paramotors for the Icarus Trophy, before actually starting the race or the adventure, we were discussing with Shane Denherder, who was the race director, of our planned route. I mean, all the pilots were free to choose the route they want to fly, because we had just start, one waypoint and finish line, but you could fly, it was up to you to choose where to fly to. So we were flying from here, Missoula, and we kind of needed to get to the Salt Lake City, and most of the pilots were flying along this highway all the way down, which is kind of following the valley. It's a pretty nice place, but I wanted to be the smart one and then kind of do a shortcut to fly through this valley, which was okay, and then I wanted to land here at Wisdom. It's a cool name for a city called Wisdom, that there's a gas station that has fuel and it's open at the side and impossible to land. When I showed this to Shane Denherder, I said, hey, I want to fly from here, from Derby, then fly across these mountains and land here. He said, okay, Miro, but you better take only half tank of fuel. So why? I said, because this is high desert, high elevation, and it may happen that you will not be able to take off at that high elevation. And I didn't believe him. I was like, wow, what should it be a problem? I mean, I flew to 3,000 meters, 10,000 feet before, and I flew over Grand Canyon before, and why should it be a problem? If you can fly there, you should be able to take off there. But flying high elevation and takeoff at high elevation is a different story. So you said you had two takeoffs, 13 guys, only one succeeded with the largest glider, and then later, 1 hour later,
everybody took off.
Because of the wind.
Because the breeze, the little breeze, it was not very strong, but it was just a little breeze. And same thing the next morning, we just flew a very short distance. It was just the introductory flight from that range. We were supposed to go to the headwater. Only one went that direction, because after when we launched all of us, we assumed the clouds were starting to shaping up, or thought maybe better to just go directly to the airport of the town of Creed. Flying to the headwater was a bonus, but that at over 14,000 feet. So at the end, only one went to that direction. Yeah, we launched and we went to the town of Creed, and the next morning we launched from the town of Creed, but it was a little overcast and it was a little breeze, and everybody launched. Same elevation, just about, maybe...
Next day.
Yeah, maybe 8,800 feet, whatever. But this time there were only like 6 of us flying.
Well, same for me. So my experience was that it's not the elevation that causes problems, it's the elevation combined with nil wind.
There's no way.
With nil wind. So I think the longest run I ever had was here in Derby, which is surprisingly only 4,000 feet. I can't find it. Wait. Derby, Montana. Yeah. So my longest ever run, which after I finally took off, it was a 4th attempt. I laid my glider somewhere here, and I think I took off here, so I was running probably over 80 meters. And David Wainwright, he took off on the same spot. He actually was running probably over 100 meters. We were in the center of that field, thinking, oh, that's plenty now, we will be airborne. And he was flying across this road, it was 1 meter above the ground. And that's when David concluded that runway behind you is useless. Use all the runway you have when you fly at high elevation.
Exactly. Don't guess that it will be fine and long enough.
Again, we're flying small gliders, 20 meter and 22 meter. So as a general advice to someone who wants to start adventure flying, what would you say? Should these people avoid high elevation takeoffs?
Well, it will be rare for people to launch from that elevation, but it could happen. No, you can do it. It's fine. Everybody could try, but it's true not having any wind, having nothing is very complicated. So it's all again a variable with the weather, with the condition, what you're going to have. Doing adventure again with weight is acceptable as long as you have that little breeze. We realized, all of us, that the lack of breeze was the issue.
Yeah.
So 5,000 feet is not very high, but after, I would say, if you do adventure flying, do not go with a small wing.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense, unless you're on the race and you want to go faster, that's different. But if you go with friends, make sure that everybody has the same gliding ratio, same speed in function of your own weight, and try to keep everybody flying at the same speed, because that's the biggest issue when you fly as a group. And it's hard for somebody that's going too slow, stay behind, or the one that goes too fast.
Yeah, larger glider. Yeah, I remember flying in the Grand Canyon. So we were a group of 5 people taking off at the airport. And the plan was to fly over Grand Canyon. I'm not saying across because it's huge, but just to fly over Grand Canyon, spread my legs, look at the Grand Canyon. But you need to climb to 11,500 feet in order to legally fly over Grand Canyon in one of the corridors. I was the only one to make it. All the others have 20, 22 meter gliders. I had 26 at that time. And all the others just couldn't climb. So takeoff was not that big issue. It was like 6,000 feet, or maybe 7,000. But climbing at certain level, at certain altitude, the climb rate just stopped. They were just cruising full power, not gaining any more altitude, and I was way above them. I reached the 11,500, but they couldn't. I was the only one to make it there to the Grand Canyon.
Yeah,
so
sure.
Yes, for adventure flying, surprisingly a larger glider is probably beneficial.
It is.
To be able to take off in the first place, to land with reasonable speeds,
Less research yourself.
and be able to climb over mountains, high mountain passes. Well, this series is not about proper takeoff techniques, but if you shall tell one advice to pilots, what to pay attention to on high elevation takeoffs, what would that be?
Only one in terms of technique,
Yeah.
or what to use, because I think the most important thing would be to have a bigger wing than a smaller
Yes.
wing. So that's not really technique. It's,
Yeah,
more,
that's
like,
not-
it's
yeah.
more like equipment. Just practice and know that whenever you pull on these brakes there to try to land, there's nothing. So pretty much you have tendency to pull more than necessary. But mainly have a proper technique to make sure you keep that wing up and keep your arm as high as possible, get your speed enough to pull more than what you're used to. Because that's the big surprise of people. They don't pull hard enough on the brakes and they don't get the lift, they just don't.
Well, my experience was that the people start pulling too early.
Yeah, that's why I said just keep your arm up, get your speed going, and after just pull, but pull more than what you're used to.
Yes. The same thing. So I realized that for a high elevation demanding takeoff, it's hands up, run as fast as you can with no brakes. So you reach the speed, and at the end, you just pull hard on the brakes. But really, the important part is hands up. Just run as fast as you can without any brakes, and then you exchange the speed for a little bit of lift, hopefully. People are mostly surprised by when I was surprised. That is, you need to run a lot faster, a lot longer, and your climb rate sucks right after takeoff. Because you take off with brakes buried pretty low, as you said, lower than you would expect. So the glider is very close to stall speed, not in the perfect geometry as the designer had designed the glider. So it's brakes, deep on the brakes, hardly climbing, hardly getting any proper lift, hardly penetrating the air. So the climb rate is really, really slow right after takeoff. So you need a lot of clear space in front of you. So what you usually think, oh, those trees, okay, I will be climbing by that time. No, you won't be.
No. Be ready to buy a new motor frame and spend 10 hours to remove your wing out of the tree.
So, high elevation takeoff summary. Please let me summarize it. Seemingly, there's kind of no limit to elevation that you can take off. Well, you succeeded at 9,000, so it's doable as long as you have a little wind, basically. So, even 5,000 can be very, very demanding and challenging if there is no wind. And 9,000 can be okay if there is a little wind. So wind is your friend. So if you're there at the takeoff and there's zero wind, just wait for it. Secondly, glider size is your big friend. If you're planning for high elevation adventure, take the larger glider and leave the small one at home. Weight is your enemy, but power is your friend. For sure, you need plenty power. I myself, I'm 88 kilograms converted to pounds. I would be okay flying a mini plane, but not in the mountains and not for high elevation. Runway behind you is useless. That's the famous quote by David Wainwright, that be ready a lot longer than you are used to back home. Be ready to run a lot faster and be ready for a very low climb out right after takeoff. So you need a lot of room and space in front of you, free of trees and power lines, because the climb rate sucks at high elevation. We can slowly switch to the next topic, and that is elevation related, and that will be what elevation shall I fly at. Mm-hmm. It's an interesting topic. I'm sure Jean Francois has a lot more to say about this. So please stay tuned, stay with us, hit the subscribe button. Thank you for sharing, and see you soon. Ciao.